Have you ever wondered how K-pop became such a global success? Join me as we discover how the industry found out what works and what doesn't, and how K-pop became a billion-dollar industry. Hi everyone, and welcome back to Midnight Theories. And if you're new here, welcome to Midnight Theories. Today we are talking about co-ed groups, the history of co-ed groups, why they aren't as profitable, and the stigma surrounding them. So, what are co-ed groups? A co-ed group is a mixed-gendered group. Historically speaking, co-ed groups are not as common in pop music as single-gendered groups. Music industry experts have pointed out that these groups are difficult to market because of the unspoken roles boy groups and girl groups portray. According to music writer Jake Austin, girl groups and boy groups appeal to young girls in distinct ways, with girl groups being marketed as role models and boy groups being marketed as objects of desire, and mixing the two is unnecessarily confusing. Specifically in South Korea, companies tend to avoid co-ed groups for a long list of reasons, the first being cost versus profitability. Companies have to take into account separate housing, different stylists, a choreographer that can choreograph a dance that can move seamlessly, and a producer willing to make a song that fits both ranges. We also have scandals, rumors, and bullying that can occur. And lastly, the big one is the main concept and role that these groups and idols try to sell you the fantasy that you are close to these idols. You feel like you know them, yet they are unobtainable. Some of the first co-ed groups to hit the Korean radio waves were Cool, Rua, Sharp, and Coyote, among others. The first wave of co-ed groups were pretty popular and successful with the audience of the 90s, some of which are still around to this day. But what differentiates the first wave of co-ed groups from newer generations? The first wave of co-ed groups were the blueprint, but with being the first, there would be failures. Rua and Sharp had some of the darkest and intense scandals during their active years. The K-pop culture was at its very beginning, and there was not much of a baseline or guide to follow in a conservative country like South Korea. But one thing was for certain, and it was definitely keeping these genders separated, for what might be obvious reasons. Most idols train and debut from a very young age, which could cause a problem. And I'm talking hormones. Not only does a mixed-gendered group diminish the idea or fantasy of you ever having a romantic relationship with your idol, but having these teens and young adults work in a close and strenuous condition could cause unavoidable rumors and scandals such as bullying, harassment, dating, and even idol pregnancy. Not saying that these rumors or scandals have not existed outside of co-ed groups, they have, but with co-ed groups, they have an increased chance by working and living in close quarters. Just like how most single-gendered groups have the so-called 7-year curse, co-ed groups have a quote curse of their own. Most co-ed groups tend to have a way shorter time span before completely disbanding or separating. Most notable examples are Triple H, Troublemaker, Co-ed School, and Sunny Hill. We'll talk about Triple H a little bit later in the video, but for now, we'll move on to the quote scandalous duo Troublemaker. Troublemaker was a one male and one female act. They were a project group under Cube Entertainment. The duo released their self-titled album and shocked the crowd with their performance. The duo shared what looked like to be an intimate kiss in the middle of their performance. Cube Entertainment were forced to release a public statement that stated that the kiss was not lip to lip, but actually lip to cheek. The duo's music show performances were heavily criticized for their suggestive choreography. Cube Entertainment were forced into a corner once again and had to alter the choreography for the remainder of promotions. With their second comeback, the duo teased their comeback with a racy photo shoot that angered the public once again. Troublemaker were also invited to the 2013 Mamas and continued to stun the audience with their onstage lip-to-lip kiss and racy choreography. This would go down in history as one of the most iconic and shocking moments in K-pop history. The duo never officially disbanded, however, this would be the last we'd hear the name Troublemaker. There were speculations out there that the pair were in a relationship during their time as a duo, and once they broke up, the two no longer wanted to continue promoting. Others thought that the two were heavily criticized for being a co-ed group and thought they'd never be successful as a strictly boy or girl group. Co-ed School debuted in 2010 under Core Contents Media, now known as MBK Entertainment. The group consisted of 4 female members and 6 male members, and some of which you might recognize a few faces. The group did fairly well for their debut, and even outsold their mini debut album. The company only produced 20,000 copies, while the demand was over 50,000 in pre-orders. The following 2 years, Core Contents Media separated the group into, quote, subunits. Known as 5 Dolls in Speed, the separation was not meant to be permanent, but as we know it, the company released an official statement that the two groups would not rejoin since they have become two independent ensembles and the member lineup has changed since debut. So according to them, there was no reason to regroup, and not to mention the heavy rumors and scandals that surrounded the group, which I'll talk about in a different video. With Sunny Hill, the group debuted in 2007 by For Everyone Media. The group consisted of 2 female members and 1 male member. The lineup has varied over the years with losing and adding members, but the group stayed primarily a female group, with their only male member being featured in a few music videos and not really participating in vocals. Right after enlisting in the army and barely being able to participate in their comebacks, he permanently left the group in 2014. Other co-ed groups that are very short-lived were First, We, and Play the Siren. These groups were primarily known as the second wave of co-ed groups. There was no demand for these sort of groups, and as fan culture within K-pop started to stabilize, the demand for boy groups was huge. Big companies at the time found no profitability with these sort of groups and continued to practice on heavy-hitting boy groups and enthralling girl groups. And you can't forget the intense fan service. Most fans' mindsets at the time were, if you can't date your idol, then at least they can date each other. But fan service and shipping is a whole nother subject and video that we're not even going to touch on today. The second wave of co-ed groups found little to no success, and being under such small companies did not help and were forced to disband and considered a loss. While companies did not find profitability in co-ed groups, special stages and project groups combining already popular groups and idols were a pretty big thing. Which brings us to what I consider the third and present wave of co-ed groups, which are Akmu, Card, Triple H, and very recently, Checkmate. Akmu is a pretty fresh and separate case. The two are a brother and sister duo under YG Entertainment. They won the second season of K-Pop Star and were signed under aka one of the big 3. The group has done incredibly well over the years, being nominated and winning many awards, and not to mention how catchy and loved every single was. Triple H was a project group formed under Cube Entertainment. Triple H was a 2-male, 1-female act. Hyuna was also a part of this group and shared the stage with 2 of her label mates. The trio were instantly dubbed Troublemaker 2.0, and many started to question if the group would end up just like Troublemaker. June of 2018, the group were announced to have a comeback. The group released their second and final comeback titled Retro Future. The trio was short-lived due to some unexpected information was released. During promotions for Retro Future, rumors surfaced that Triple H members Hyuna and E'Dawn were in a relationship. Soon after, Hyuna took to her Instagram and further confirmed the rumors. I actually made an entire video of the history of Hyuna, where I talked more in depth about the scandal and aftermath of the situation. So head over to that video after this. I will leave the link down below in the description. Card was a 4-member group under DSP Media. The group is made up of 2 males and 2 females. There was much anticipation for the group because there hasn't been a real idol co-ed group in years, with the exception of Akmu, but you know. The group released a series of project singles starting in 2016 and later followed up with their official debut in 2017. The group is extremely popular internationally, while still considered unknown in their home country. Nevertheless, they are still going very strong in the industry and are still making music. Card has opened up with the struggles of being a co-ed group and opened our eyes to things that we would never really consider. When you see girl groups, they can be tomboyish, but for the most part, people usually want to see that sexy cute, that pretty girlish vibe. And when you see boy groups, they usually have like super hard-hitting and sharp movements. But with us, it's kinda hard to stick with that because we do have 2 guys in the group. Finding that line between what the boys are good at and incorporating what the girls are good at is one of the hardest things for our choreographers. It's a struggle every time because everyone has to shine in the song. The group also opened up on why it used to take them so long for them to have a comeback. Producers tend to write songs strictly for boy or girl groups, and it is hard to come by to have a producer work on a song that can fit both parties because of the complexity in male and female keys. For that reason, BM took the initiative to write, compose, and arrange some of their music, and other members helped as well. Back when they first started out, the group was given only one changing room, and it was uncomfortable to share. Now, fortunately, they get their own separate changing rooms, which helped out a great deal. They also touched on how awkward it was in the beginning to dance provocatively with each other. Even though it's uncomfortable for us, we had to get used to it because even if it's awkward, it's more awkward for the viewers if they sense the tension between us. That's why we got over the awkward stages and did our best with the dance. Carter riding high on the fruit of their labor and giving a unique touch and performance that just can't be done with any other group. In early September, teaser photos were released and news spread like crazy that a new co-ed group would be hitting the scene. Checkmate is a 5-member group under a small company called Grace Company Entertainment. The group consists of 2 female members and 3 male members. They recently just debuted with their song Drum, which I highly recommend you give a listen to if you haven't already. Not much is really out there about this new group, so I'm really curious on how things will go for them. With the expansion of K-pop hitting more globally, and with the new age of technology not only helping fans find K-pop and content more accessible, but it in turn helps the artists' careers and reach a larger audience, which was never possible before. Considering KARD's struggle to make it in a tough industry that is harder for co-ed groups to simply exist amongst others and put in the extra effort, do you think Checkmate has what it takes with the longevity and extra pressure? Also, do you think bigger companies will consider debuting a co-ed group in the future? And if so, what big companies do you think will take this direction? Let me know all your thoughts and comments down below. And as always, thank you for watching and enjoy your stay.